Hello, everyone. How are you? Hope you're having an incredible day, and may peace be upon you. Thank you for watching the show. It Takes Courage with me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. And today I have my really good friend, a fabulous guest, and someone who is very intuitive, but also has a beautiful heart of helping other people. And my guest today is Deidre Sirianni. So Deidre is a best-selling author and also a conscious leadership coach. She's amazing what she does. Her book, Turn Your Light On, recently hit the bestseller on Amazon. So if you haven't grab a copy of her book yet, go and grab a copy of her book on Amazon. And Deidre is an activator and guide to visionaries, leaders, and impact-driven entrepreneurs who are ready to change the world in a big way and unwilling to compromise when it comes to matters of the heart. She's also a TEDx speaker, international best-selling author, and founder of Radically Aligned Life, a coaching and mentoring academy for those who are committed to actualizing their full potential in all areas of life. She believes that the path to fulfillment and living the life of your dream comes down to three crucial steps and how deeply you can embody them. And today, Deidre and I are going to have a conversation on how you can turn your light on even when it's dark, even when you can't find the switch, and also equally as important on how you can stay turning your light on as for years to come. So let's welcome Deidre to the stage. Deidre, darling, hello, and welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Deidre. So let's talk about this topic, turn your light on. First of all, why do we even need to turn our light on? Because then it's going to be too bright, or like people can't handle, or we can't even handle it. And also, like, isn't our light is already turned on? So let's, kind of give your take on that.
Well, it's interesting because you said a couple different things there that I want to touch on isn't our light already turned on? And how do we know if we need to turn our light on? And what if it's too bright? Right. And so what I'm hearing right there, whether you were intentional with it or not, is like we have so much programming within us that it's not safe to fully be who we are in the world. And so that's like definitely a thing that happens. I know for me on my journey, I used to have a core belief system is that, I really have been leaning into in the last couple of years. It's not safe to shine. It's not safe to be the best. It's not safe to be in the spotlight. And as a result of that subconscious belief system that I wasn't even aware of until the last couple of years, I had these self-sabotaging things that I would do that would pull me away from what I wanted most. And so how do we know if our light's not on fully? Well, we're frustrated. We're not getting the results that we want. We're inconsistent. We feel like one day we're showing up powerfully for what we want, and the next day we're playing small and we're backing away from what we want most. And the best way to look at it really is, are you fully living on purpose? Are you fully fulfilled? Do you have that type of relationship that you want? Are you making the kind of impact that you want? Do you have the kind of energy that you want? If you have everything you want and more, and you're feeling fully fulfilled and things are running and you're in like legacy building mode, your light's on. But what happens when things get hard? How do you show up? What happens then? Or are you like, I would say, closer to 90% of the population that's in a struggle between their light being off and their light being the flickering light stage? So there's 4 stages of turning our light on. Is it okay if I share a little bit on that, Is?
Yeah, absolutely. So you talk about in your bio as well, that's four kind of like, you call it the pillars, right? Like there's four like main pillars for you to turn the light on. So go ahead, Deidre.
Yeah. So the first stage, which I believe so many people are in right now, and it's a lot of it's based on programming of fear of, media, what's in the media, and just like this fear-based mentality, but also programming as a woman, as a man, as the conditionings that we've grown up in. Stage 1, it's like being in the forest in the middle of the night and having a flashlight that doesn't work. What are you going to do? What would you do if you were in the forest in the middle of the night by yourself and your flashlight didn't work? What would you do?
Well, I've had the experience, Deidre, of, when I was younger going to camp, and then we were on the camp, we were supposed to go on a hike, right? And then, it was just so dark and everything, and they didn't even give us a flashlight. And the thing that scares me the most was meeting the ghost. Like, I don't want no ghost spirit to come to me, but it was scary. I would always be so conscious on where I'm stepping, but I knew that I couldn't stay at the same place because either the ghosts are going to get me or the snake is going to come to me, and I would take the next step, and the next step being so scared of the dark, because when you're in the forest at night, it's dark. It is completely dark.
Yeah, I love that answer, Is because when our light is turned off, when we all have a flashlight, we all have light inside of us. Just so many of us have had life events that have happened, trauma, conditioning, programming, where our light's off, and it's like being in the forest in the middle of the night where our flashlight doesn't work. And what tends to happen is we live in fear and we can't see outside of us. We're disconnected from our body because we're in fight or flight mode or freeze. And what tends to happen in stage 1 of turning our light on is we're disconnected from our purpose. We're disconnected from life. Disease is really common. Chronic pain is common. And also just feeling like, what's the point? So if you're at a point in your life right now and you're listening or watching this and you're like, I'm depressed, I'm not feeling good, I'm not really taking action, I live in fear, there's a big possibility that you're at stage 1. And in this stage, there's 2 things that we can do. We can stay where we're at, which is our comfort zone, because we're not able to see outside of us and we're feeling disconnected. This is my cat, Prince. He has to say hello.
Hello. He always shows up whenever I'm with you. Hello, Prince.
Prince loves you. And so we can either stay where we're at, or we can do the work of learning what our soul has to say through these manifestations of disease, and really do the deeper work of healing our trauma and getting some support. And that's when we're able to connect more with our body and our soul so that we can have more clarity. Because without clarity, without vision, without stepping out of fear, we're going to stay in essentially a prison that we've created for ourselves. So that's stage 1. Stage 2 is the flickering light stage. Okay. So again, in the forest in the middle of the night, sometimes your flashlight's working and sometimes it's not. So in life, what that looks like, and like going about our life and our vision and our goals and our purpose, is sometimes we're showing up powerfully. We know where we're going. We're moving forward. We get momentum. Maybe right now, because it's the new year, you have like fitness goals, or you have business goals, or you have connection goals with a partner, or you're open to relationship and you're putting yourself out there and it feels good. But then what feels like out of nowhere, you might know why it happened. You may not. You don't feel comfortable moving forward anymore. And then you go back to stage 1, playing small, hiding, in fear, and old behaviors that aren't serving you. So at this stage, stage 2 of turning your light on, the flickering light stage, what's running the show are subconscious belief systems, unprocessed trauma, and not knowing what your triggers are. So earlier I was sharing how I used to have this belief system that I didn't even know was running the show around it's not safe to shine, it's not safe to be the best. So guess what would happen every time I did really well? What do you think happened?
Something bad happened that snaps on the rug and you kind of like fall down, crashed again, and you're like, no, it can't be this easy. It can't be this easy. Or like, you probably have done by that stage 98 steps. It's probably 100 steps, but you've done a lot. Like, you know what? No, something's about to go wrong at that 98th step and everything being swept the rug from you.
You read my mind. I feel like you're psychic. I feel like you're psychic. No, seriously, this is what happened. And I would go, I would do a big event, or I'd have something big happen where I'd get all this exposure and all of this attention or whatever. And then something would happen, usually from a person in my field, like I say field as in my like network, that would turn me into being like, it's not safe to be in the spotlight. And guess what I would do? I would go and I would retreat and I would say, I don't really want that goal. It's not really for me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us are doing this and we don't even know why we're doing it. And so it wasn't until I got clear on what my triggers were and some of my subconscious belief systems that I started to understand that me going back to old behaviors or not leaning more into my gifts, which is being in the spotlight and all of that and serving, is I had to reprogram those subconscious belief systems, get support to overcome them, and know that I was actually self-sabotaging. It wasn't anyone else. Maybe they were manifestations of my belief systems. I believe in that too. But I was sabotaging my dreams and my vision because I hadn't done the deeper work around some core belief systems. Crazy,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. Which is like crazy because it's just so close. Something that you've dreamt a long time, right? Something that you worked on, put a lot. Now, the thing with Deidre is that when you do something, you go all out, right? Like even your massacre, was it all in or something? Like you would like go all in. But then, like what Deidre was saying, she didn't understand or being aware what was the triggers that all of a sudden, oh, it can't be too easy. Something's about to happen, and sure enough it kind of show it in a certain way because of the previous trauma and being dealt with it. So it's kind of like that's the flickering stage, right, Deirdre? So you have the space where you're in darkness, where you're like exhausted, you're not satisfied, and then the flickering, the on and off, you do really well and then pull back, do really well, pull back, and then self-sabotage by saying that's not my dream anymore, that is not my purpose. You kind of like backtracking. So what would be like the third stage of it?
Yeah. And I think the second stage is where so many people get stuck. So I just want to illuminate that for anyone who's listening, because knowing your triggers on a subconscious level and your stuff will change your life. Like, hugely. So stage 3 is the bright light stage. So really like your light's on, it's in all directions. And it's kind of like, again, being in the forest in the middle of the night. You have a flashlight, it works. But the problem is, this is the problem, there's no direction. The light's going everywhere. So it's kind of like having a light bulb in the middle of the forest. It's going in all directions, but you can only see like half a meter to your right, half a meter to your left, half a meter in front of you. And so how that translates in like the space of our own life and our evolution, how we're showing up in the world, is we're taking steps, little steps in all directions. And we tend to do a lot of things that give us the quick hit. So I'm really good at this kind of task, or I'm really good at helping people with this. And we're doing so many different things. And as a result, we're not going all in on our dreams and the one thing that we want most, because we don't have a clear enough vision. We don't trust ourselves. And that's why we're overwhelmed and overcommitted to usually other people's dreams or a bunch of projects or things that aren't actually what I like to call it. The it factor, when you're like, this is it. And and then we tend to like be like, oh, I'm too busy to start that business. I'm too busy to start that magazine. I'm too busy to start that podcast, start that show. And that is the saboteur beneath it. So what we need to learn most here, and I hear this all the time with entrepreneurs, like, oh, I want to start this project. I've wanted to do it for years. And they're like, but I'm too busy. I'm too overwhelmed. It's because on a deeper level, there's a fear of what if I go all in and I fail? And then the next one is they haven't learned how to quiet the noise and really trust their vision because they don't potentially have the full vision. So, what we need to do most here is we need to have a mentor, join a program or a group of people that have a similar vision and mission who can actually be like, hey, D, hey, Iz, you're off track. We're going this way. What are you doing? You're like, oh, right, I'm distracting. Because beneath this, I have a fear that I'll fail if I go all in. And then we jump in, we go all in with the vision and we quiet the noise. But this stage is the trickiest to get out of because we're so good at being so busy with everything that we're good at that it's easy to stay stuck here. So I'm curious, do you have any reflections on that stage in your life or like kind of what you're hearing from this?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, even for me, there's multiple things that I want to do, and also like multiple things that people want to do projects with me or collaborations with me. Even my kids, right? But there's only 24 hours in a day. And then more importantly, which one is the one that is truly in alignment with me? Because I found out that with my many experiences, when things are not aligned with me, it just goes a bit crazy, whether it's with the people or with the person or with the project. And then I just tend to hold on and I get angry and grumpy as I go holding on to it. But it's also having the courage to let go on the things that not in alignment with me anymore, or I've outgrown it, but then focus on, you know what, I really want to do this thing, this one thing. It's but my dream, but it's hard, it's big. Not many people are doing it. Who am I going to ask support for? Oh, then people are going to think I'm showing off,
Right.
if I go through that route.
I love this conversation is, and this is really common for people. And one of the things I notice is because I'm really committed to being in stage 4, like I'm really committed to my vision. And sometimes people will show up for us and they'll be like, oh, I want a partner, I want to support you, but they want to shift the vision, they want to shift what you're working on. And it's about being fully committed to your vision and going all in. And then there's stage 4, which is the laser focus light. It's like you've got the blinders on things that aren't it. You're going all in. You see the vision. People are showing up for you. You're building your personal team. You're also building your support of people to help you do that. And you are in a space of building legacy and you're moving into flow. You wake up every day and you have a plan because you've created a plan to be all in, and that's what you're showing up for. And that is the space where we're in legacy building, where we're fulfilled, where we're showing up fully, and we're all in on our dreams. And that's what, those are the stages to get there. And stage 4 is just about discipline. I actually have this on my wall right now, rules to live by in 2023. And it's commitment and planning equal flow and freedom, but also discipline equals freedom. So you have to have a level of discipline, like brushing your teeth every day, to have great teeth. Same thing goes with your dreams. And so that's stage 4. And those are the 4 stages of turning your light on.
That is so cool. And then loving the analogy of, in the forest, and then, the flickering light, the no light, the flickering light, and then, kind of like having the whole light bulb thing, and, kind of like staying true and committed to your purpose. You've given myself and the viewers a lot of key points and values, Deidre. But before that, I just want to kind of flip the switch a little bit, and then we hook back it in again. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started in this journey? Was it something that happened organically, or was it something that happened out of necessity, or was it something that happened because you were thrown into, because someone was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore, and you were like, you know what, I'll take over? So how did kind of it get started in this journey? Because I know you've been in this kind of expansion for the last, I would say, 13 years or so.
Yeah. So, about 12 years ago, I moved to Vancouver, and before this, I was working in radio and television, and I thought I wanted to be on country music television and BBMC talking about country music because I used to work for a country station in Calgary, Canada. And so I moved to Vancouver for the man that I ended up marrying, and I was doing a bunch of random jobs, and it wasn't really it, that it factor of like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I stumbled into a career by default of teaching yoga full time because I needed something temporary. And I started doing it, and it was easy. It was a thing I was naturally good at. I, had all these opportunities to be on television, to teach internationally, to have my own clothing line with my name on it within like a year of teaching. And I had big sponsoring me, but it didn't feel like it was it. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
I remember going to my friend. She invited me to go to what I thought was going to be a yoga class. But let me tell you, I walk into this, industrial building. I have my yoga mat one night. I think I'm going to a workshop, and there's a bunch of people sitting in a half circle around a woman with long white hair that goes to the floor who looks like okay?
I know, right? I can imagine it. And you with your yoga mat.
I'm wearing like bright pink, yoga pants. And I'm like, okay. And my friend's in the circle already, and she's quite a bit older than me. And I'm like, okay. So I put my yoga mat down. I sit in a chair. Everyone's super quiet. Like if a pin were to fall, you'd hear it fall. And after a minute or so, the woman starts speaking, and she starts going around the circle one by one by one to each person. How do you feel in your body? And the people start crying and having these huge emotional breakdowns. And then she comes to me, and I swear I'm right in front of her in this half circle. And I'm like, I'm good. And she's like, no. How do you feel in your body? I'm like, I'm good. And then everyone was so silent. Everyone's like, who is this chick? Why is she here? Where does she come from? I'm like, I'm clearly in the wrong room right now. Like, what's going on here? Right? And she went around, and at the end of the session, or most of the time I was there, I kept looking at the exit, and I was like, how do I get out of here without making it obvious? I'm in the center of the room. I was like, I can't be here anymore. I was so uncomfortable. And so later that night, when I left the workshop, I didn't plan on ever going back to that workshop, by the way. But as I was leaving the room, my soul, like my voice said, when's the next circle? And everyone was just as surprised as me as those words came out of my mouth. And the lady's like, oh, it's next week. And I just kept coming back and back and back. And what I discovered later on was this woman was a shaman. And she was one of the very first shamans that I studied with, who taught me the work of understanding how the soul communicates to you and waking up through the body and physical symptoms, which later on developed into this system that I teach in my book, the language of the soul and waking up to who you are and who you're meant to be. And that's what brought me onto this path. And then, years later, once I was still in that yoga space, but studying with shamans and doing this work, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was like, this is not my true path. This is me being small. I was in a marriage I was really unhappy with, to the point where my soul was shutting my body down. I was getting very ill. And I had to really go back to these teachings and be like, this isn't it. I have to go all in on what is it. And I had all these signs and universal messages saying you're a coach, you're a healer, you need to claim it. And then I eventually left that relationship, got my own apartment, and literally probably within the same week or two of leaving that, I was like, I'm a coach now, and this is what I do. And that was about 5 years ago. And I've been all in ever since.
Wow, that is kind of it's just so interesting, the turning point and the journey, you're like, who would have thought, you with your pink hot pants, yoga thing with a mat, and I'm like, oh my God, that's like you were saying, literally looks like a wish. That's how I envision her with what is that in a lot of the rings? What is that? Oh my God, that fairy, long white hair, having that kind of presence. But also there was something, logically, it's like you got to run away. That's logically what, because all this bunch of people are a little bit woo-woo. But there was something that intrinsically, or the soul kind of calling, what, when is the next one? And the next one, and the next one. And I feel that sometimes, Deidre, we kind of overjudge and overthink things, and not giving things the opportunity to actually listen to what we need, what we want, there's something, the yearning to what we have, in whichever, whether it's making a business decision, family decision, relationship decision, or whatever that is. Now I want to talk about kind of holding it the space that you had to go through, like you said, within a week or something, you're like a coach. So kind of like, how was it like the transition from being a yoga instructor and
Mhm.
then learning about spirituality and then transitioning into coaching, healing, business
Mhm.
side of things? Because those are big shifts. Like business, we're not taught in school.
Yeah.
So can you give us like a couple of things that you did
Mhm.
in the beginning to help you to get started? Because I know one of the things that you do is you help visionaries and leaders to make an impact, and part of it is having a scalable and expansion of business.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like in our minds, we want to box people in and say, oh, yoga is different than this, or this is different from this.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally get that. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship is in my blood. And I actually started my first business when I was 21. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm 33 now. And so I started my first business when I was 21. It was just a yoga business, it wasn't a
Right.
coaching business. And in that space, I was working in corporations and I was already coaching. I just wasn't claiming that title. So I was going into
Mm-hmm.
corporations, I was running retreats and doing personal development. And they kept telling me, you're a coach, this is what you're doing. But I wasn't ready to own that. I was in a space of like, no, I'm a yoga teacher. I was boxing myself in. And then when I finally left that relationship, I was letting go of everything that didn't feel good in my soul. And I had to do a real check there of like, even though I'm getting all this external validation for yoga, I can travel the world, I can have my own TV show on a local network, etc., and a clothing line. This feels like boring to me, and it doesn't feel fulfilling. So I was like, I better just jump into that thing and do it. And the thing was, when we own our title, when we own
Mm-hmm.
what we know that we can do, people show up and we're going to help them in a big way. So I just one day was like, it may sound from the outside looking in like, whoa, like that, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I can see how some people would judge that. But one day I was just like, I'm a coach and I help people own their truth and step into who they are. And I was doing mainly women's work for my first year. But the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, I had already mastered a lot of this stuff over the last decade of working with shamans, working within myself, attending groups, working with coaches, learning. I already been in business for years, right? But I wasn't marketing those things. So I was just helping people who were a few steps behind me. And so if you're in a space of wanting to transition and step into something that feels more purposeful, it's because your soul is telling you to do it. And you don't have to be, Tony Robbins, the best person in the world to start. You just have to show people, the steps that you've recently taken within the last 6 months to a year that without a doubt that are solid. So for me, I was teaching trusting your intuition, listening to
Mm-hmm.
your body. I'd already been studying with shamans for like 7 years, and mastering a lot of that work and working with the body. And I was just claiming it. But also, the next thing, I decided that I wanted to have a career where I only had to work a couple days a week and I could have financial freedom and live anywhere. Because I'm like, when I have kids, I want to be able to be home with them. I want to be able to have that freedom. So I started my business from a space of intention. I'm going to work 2 days a week to start. I'm going to hit six figures in my first year. And I'm going to do something that I love to make an impact. And I did that. And then over the years, the past 5 years, I fine tuned that. I help a lot more people. And that's what I help people do, but also consciously choosing who we want to be in the world and consciously choosing how we want to serve, and then creating a business and also internal life where we're in radical alignment so that we can consciously create that. So there's a few things, but hiring support is so important. Hiring a mentor who's done what you want to do is everything. It helps you close the gap between where you are now and where you want to go so much faster.
Absolutely. And I love that you touch about like, do not discredit your previous experiences, because for you, you've already like gone through, the training, the coaching, you've already in the space. And then kind of like starting off, you don't have to be like Tony Robbins, or you think you have to be at a certain stage. Where you are now is just perfect to get started, because remember where you are, there's always a few people behind you. And then remember, like, I started coaching like when I was in my early 20s with young kids. I teach them sports, right? So sports, I'm a sports coach. I do this with the kids, do this, like from 4 years old, 5 years old, all the way to 15 and 16. And then would you touch base something really important that, if I take that into experience, I've already been training for like 20 years. I'm always 20, okay? Let's call it that. But but having that, and it's not when you coach children, it's not easy because children, you have to break it down in the simplest steps. Otherwise, it'd be chaos. One kid would be running here, one kid would be running there, one would be crying. So it's kind of having that kind of like look back on your previous experiences and take that into consideration, because nothing is a coincidence in life. Just like what Deidre said, she's already been learning about spirituality and trust intuition, and she's come from a family of entrepreneurship, so that's already in her blood. Her parents or grandparents probably have put in all these little tidbits in you since you were little, and then just using that to start. Like Deirdre, you didn't wait for like the whole year to start. It was within a week, a couple of weeks, to like claiming who you are, or who you've always been, from that standpoint. And speaking of that, claiming who you meant to be, there's a chapter in your book of spiritual chaos alignment. And this is something really important. I haven't read that chapter yet, but this is something that I feel that we experiences chaos in multiple states, not just in the new year, not just at the end of the year, but in various areas of our lives. So this is also a chapter in your book, Turn Your Light On. So while we wrap things up, Deirdre, can you give us like a quick kind of like overview on the essence of either managing or overcoming or embracing spiritual chaos?
Thank you. So, spiritually aligned chaos, I'll just explain a little bit what it is. It's the chaos that needs to happen for you to get on your path. It's the thing that needs to happen for you to take a turn. It's the thing that needs to happen for you to step into your purpose in a deeper way. So, for me, I didn't share this story specifically, but years later, when I was in that relationship, that I mentioned, my marriage, I had a moment where all of a sudden I had a bald spot on the top of my head. And I was looking at myself in the mirror with my phone behind me and like, oh my gosh, like clearly the universe is trying to tell me something. I manifested a bald spot. I had 4 autoimmune diseases. I had chronic pain. I was depressed. I had a vision of wanting to end my life. And this all manifested within a year. And the reason it manifested, which could look like chaos or, wow, this woman's going through a lot, I could be victim or I could make it a victory. And so for me in that moment, because I had already been studying with shamans and doing this work, I was like, oh my gosh, my soul is trying to give me a message. So that was spiritually aligned chaos. That was a turning point for me. What's going on in the world right now? A lot of people are depressed, sick, and they're going through a struggle, whether it's in their relationship, their health, financially, all of these things are going on. And when we can stop trying to control it and manage it, and we can just be with the chaos, what happens when a storm comes through a town, let's say a tornado, it clears everything out that doesn't belong. Spiritually aligned chaos is the same thing. If you're going through chaos right now, instead of resisting it and trying to manage and avoid it, I encourage you to lean into it, allow yourself to fully feel it all. And then when the dust settles, you're going to see what is for you and what is not for you. The biggest problem is that so many of us are resisting the chaos in our life, that we're putting all these band-aids on and we're trying to manage things and we feel exhausted and we live in fear and anxiety. Whereas the universe, your body, as well as the universe, God, whatever you believe in, is actually trying to recalibrate you for something beautiful on the other side when you surrender and let go of control. And that's what that chapter is all about.
Wow, that is just so powerful. And suddenly I had this like because I've just completed something, a book project with a client, and there was so many chaos in that, Deirdre. The more I try to manage it and control it, the crazier it becomes, the more splat it becomes, the messier it becomes, the more mistakes it was made.
Yeah.
The more I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm trying to put a fire everywhere, trying to control things and to do this and to do this. So much things. And, like having what you said earlier, like rather than resisting or fighting over it, just lean into it, because the storm just, it's kind of like a clearing. So the clearing could be, what, this client isn't in alignment with me anymore, or this team member isn't in alignment with me, or maybe this methodology isn't with me anymore. Like it's a book project. Like I've been doing book projects since 2018, 2019. I've nailed down the system. I could do it in my sleep. But all the times, right, it just going splat and messier and crazier and everything else. And now it's kind of like complete that part. I was like, oh, oh, that. Thank God for this. Thank God for that. Bye
Yeah.
bye to this. Bye bye to that. And hello to this X, Y, and Z. So
Yeah.
you're saying spiritual chaos is something that it's not a possibility that's going to happen, but it's a guarantee that's going to happen. And the key is to lean into it.
Yeah, and I just think of someone like, the storm is coming towards their house and they're like, I'm gonna hold on to my house and control everything. And it's like, no, like tornado's coming for you. Why don't you go in a safe place down, in your like, some area
Yeah.
where you're gonna be okay and let the storm pass, rather than trying to confront the storm and do all the things. And one of the things you just mentioned is that I think is really powerful is, sometimes we have to work a little bit harder because we need to show up and create a new system or better communication or whatever it is in a relationship or in a business or whatever. And sometimes it's just like, oh, this just isn't working anymore. And that's okay. And we have to get okay with letting go of what has expired without clinging to it or making it mean that we failed.
Absolutely. And that's such a huge thing, not making it, like being a failure because of this happened. Like all I know is that I've done the best that I can, like, the best that I can in that possible moment. And like what you were saying, Deidre, that you cannot control the uncontrollable. There's no way people to control the uncontrollable. So kind of like, let's wrap up. My neighbor, Richard, just came to drop off some lemons. So you're going to have that. So Deidre, tell us what's your biggest advice to people to turn their light on?
My biggest advice is like, if you have disease in your body or some sort of ailment, is to ask yourself, what are you numbing or avoiding dealing with in your life? I truly believe that most disease comes from not actually honoring our soul and what our soul is trying to tell us. And it comes from shoving things down and managing. And, it's easy to go and get medication and all of that stuff to avoid a feeling or a symptom. And I'm not knocking any of that. I'm just saying, please do the inner work as well, because, I was able to heal myself of 3 of 4 autoimmune diseases. My hair grew back, even though the doctors told me I'd probably lose all of it. My depression went away and my chronic pain went away, all within 3 months of doing this inner work. And then I do recommend picking up my book because I take you through a system of this. But give yourself permission to ask yourself what you're avoiding or managing so that you can create more freedom, because life doesn't have to be hard. We make it hard. And that's been a huge, sometimes hard pill for me to swallow when I'm in my own way. But let me tell you, it's the best advice I can give you.
So, sometimes we just want to overcomplicate things to make us look smarter or busier, or important or whatever that is. Whereas, like all these things can be done in a couple of steps. And then you get to do what you want to do, like Deidre, like you're mentioning, like, the freedom, right, to do your projects. When you have kids one day, you want to be with them, and that's the same thing with me. I want to be with my kids. I want to go and drop them off and pick them up from school. It sounds like boring, but I just love it. I love seeing my kids running to me when they finish their classroom. I can go to the playground anytime I want. So it's just, so don't make it overcomplicated. We make it overcomplicated, but it doesn't have to be. So Deirdre, let's wrap up with this. I have like a couple of quick fire questions.
Awesome.
So, just like something fun that we can, just for people to get to know you. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask never have I ever, because I think that game is a little bit scary. That's the only one. So,
No?
quick question then. Okay, what's your favorite food?
Red Thai curry.
Oh, red Thai curry. Love it. Favorite color?
Aqua blue.
Aqua blue. Awesome. Favorite book?
Ooh, Emissaries of Light by James Twyman.
Awesome. And what's the first thing that you do when you wake up?
I grab my coffee.
Yes,
Snuggle with my cats, and then I have coffee.
Coffee. And what's the last thing that you do before you go to sleep?
I usually listen to music and I snuggle my cats.
Nice. Now you can have your cats at the end of the day. And then what is your dream destination, the place that you dream to going on next?
So my dream, like as far as like location in the world, or
Yes.
like, okay,
Location in the world.
Location in the world, I really want to go to Greece.
Greece, like, is it Santorini or a different part of Greece?
I just want to be on the ocean in Greece. I love like the buildings and like I just love the aesthetics of it, and I just see myself being in Greece by the water. There's no specific destination within Greece yet, but I want to go in the next year.
Beautiful. And who is someone that you secretly stalking but don't tell people about?
Secretly stalking, like or something?
Yep, secretly stalking, but you don't tell people about on social media.
Secretly stalking. You know what? I'm actually going to pull this person's name up right now because it's somebody that I've been recently following on Instagram that I'm like, first I thought this guy was kind of harsh and it didn't resonate. But then suddenly, everything that he posts resonates. Oh, I don't know if it's going to show up in time, but I forget this guy's name, but he's like a salesperson in the space of real estate, and he gives really direct advice. Oh, also Steve Harvey, best relationship advice you'll ever get, ladies. That guy is gold. And then,
oh my God, Steve Harvey. He used to be the host of that game show. What is that game show called, Deirdre?
Not Family Feud, is it?
Yeah, Family Feud. But I've been seeing his little snapshots of how he coached people, right, on relationships and everything. And he's just incredible.
I love him.
One final question. What is one fun thing you do that people don't know about? And you can't say yoga with your hot pink pants.
What I do for fun, I was up until 2 a.m. last night, and had a good little sleep in this morning, is I've been singing and songwriting for the past year behind the scenes, and it brings me so much joy.
Oh, that's amazing. That's something that you told me last year as well, having into the singing and having dreams. And then it's just because you're pretty creative. You love, the creation of things. And, hopefully one day we'll get to hear your music. Which will be
spring or the fall. I'll be releasing an album, so that's the goal.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so cool. So Deirdre, with the final thing, let's wrap up with this. One word, turn your light on, is fill in the blanks.
Everything.
Good one. Turn your light on is everything. Thank you so much, Deidre, for having this conversation today. And it was so fun, so not just valuable, but it also very deep and impactful. And I hope that I know myself that I was, learning a lot from this conversation. And I hope the viewers and the listeners are, taking a lot of benefits and value and impact from this as well. So, Deidre, thank you so much for joining us on It Takes Courage. With me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. Until the next episode, tell yourself, yes, I can, and so it is done. And remember, the time to be the go to expert in your field is right now. Take care, and Deidre, let's say bye to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.